I point to any research that shows the last few reps are where hypertrophy actually occurs. And I can't, because I never keep track of research. So even if there was research that showed that, I would forget where it was and I wouldn't be able to show it. This is one of those things where people, and again, not a good question for Lewis. This is because you get people that want to argue with you and fight with you, and you feel like research is like your weapon to defend yourself. People say, well, you don't really need to go to failure, and it says like, well, where's the research that shows that? Well, here's some research that shows this. Well, I think you need to go to failure. Where's your research? I don't have it. Oh my God, I must be wrong. I got to rethink my life. That's the tough part about when you have things that are principle based. You apply principles in the gym, and research may or may not be there. And again, I quote Paul Quinn all the time. I got to put this up on Instagram. It's good. The research people that rely on research in the field. If you rely on research to produce results, we call you a historian. Because meaning Paul Quinn's been using things. We'll use examples because he's been doing this a lot longer than I have. He's been using things since the 80s to produce results. That it wasn't until the last 5 years research now proves that it works. Does that mean it didn't work in the 80s? No, of course it fucking worked in the 80s. And Paul Quinn will say, had I not used it then, I would have had a couple decades of not producing as good of results as I could have, waiting on research to catch up. So the principle is, and I kind of covered this in a previous question, you need the stimulus. It's all about what you can tolerate. So again, someone could have, an 80-year-old comes in the gym, they never trained before. I could do anything outside of controlling their body weight, maybe the lightest isometrics, and it might cause more problems in their body because they couldn't tolerate it. So you could have someone that literally starts with feather resistance for some exercise somewhere that is appropriate for their body to adapt and change, whether it's strength or hypertrophy, whatever. And then as you progress along the spectrum, you're going to have somebody that just needs more and more and more and more stimulus. They're going to need the difference between a feather of stimulus and needing a cannon, to the face, to the amount of stimulus they need to produce results once you progress far enough in your journey. So the argument is, based on that principle, eventually you're going to need to take things to failure. Now, who needs to and how often they need to? The other variable is volume. So a lot of people, like in the previous question, some people produce great results staying short of failure. Their intensity is slightly lower and they accumulate more volume. Can that produce results? Absolutely. In my opinion, in the field, if your goal is hypertrophy, eventually everyone needs to train to failure, at least at some point in time in their training. And if there is or is not research on that, I don't know and I don't care. I care about producing results. And I think the principles that that's based upon are sound. And more importantly, I'll just point to the pool of results. That's the funny thing is everybody wants, is there a control group? Is it peer reviewed? Did you have a double blind, blah, 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 whatever. I would argue there's no better control group on the planet. Even a control group, you might be asking these people in a study, in a university study, what they're doing outside of the gym or what they're doing outside of the study time and saying, are you eating this? Are you doing that? At best, they're reporting back to you. and from my understanding, there's very few times where it's like, remember the movie Biodome? It's a horrible movie. Doesn't matter. Where you actually have people in this facility where they're on video, they're monitored. You're monitoring life stress and sleep and how they feel and their mood and their prep for their workouts. That doesn't exist. There's no real good controlled studies on hypertrophy because the outside variables are so important. I would argue working with bodybuilders, contest prep people, it's as controlled as you get, meaning that it's still not controlled. Someone could be reporting back that their sleep was good and they feel fine. They might have felt their sleep was good, but if we actually measured their sleep or some parameters of sleep, it could have actually been shit. Yes, you stayed asleep for 7 hours, but your sleep was shit. You didn't recover. So anyway, all that being said, there's no true controlled group. And I would argue that bodybuilders during contest prep are probably the best, most controlled group on the planet. So I'm perfectly fine basing results off of that and not necessarily needing research. Now again, someone's going to say that I'm against research or that research is not good. Of course I'm not. It's the most bird's eye view. It's like this night. It's nice to sit around and talk about. It's nice to look at and say, this could mean that. It's just one little drop in this whole ocean of information, hopefully in a trainer's brain that actually produces results. Very interesting. Boop, put a drop in your ocean. It is what it is. Once there's been, 10,000 studies that show something, that's a lot of drops. So we say, okay, that might actually mean something. This is why is fish oil probably a good supplement for every human being to take? Because there's probably hundreds of thousands of studies on it. That's a lot of drops. So that's a time when research, I think, has a great place. This is where you get these bullshit supplements that people would say that, I'm not going to say a company, but it rhymes with Schmushel Tech, would come up with some bullshit supplement that had one study that showed it produced 1,000% more muscle in a rat or someone or who knows what. And people, oh, fucking great, I'm going to get that, I'm going to get jacked. It's one study. It's one study. People make fun of stuff that doesn't have good research on it. One study is maybe like that much better than no studies. I want something that's got thousands of studies on it, and then I'll say that's probably a pretty good supplement, for me to look at. Or just do like the rest of it and just, anecdotally, hey, if you use it, you control for everything else. It's based on a solid principle. I'm going to give it a go. Did it produce results? Fine. If not, whatever.